Hello. You know that feeling when everything seems too perfect, almost like a dream? That was my life. I, Jake, 26 years old, was just weeks away from marrying the woman I thought I knew better than anyone else, Brooke. She was 27, smart, beautiful, and the kind of person who could light up any room she walked into. For years together, and in my mind, it was leading to a lifetime of happiness. Until today. She had gone on a work trip for 2 days. Nothing unusual. I was working from home, minding my own business. It was just another quiet morning. But then, my laptop crashed. An annoying, everyday problem that, in hindsight, was the first domino. I sat down at the home computer we shared and logged in. Her email was open on the other screen, but I did not think much of it at first. I was in the zone, focused on getting my work done. But then I saw a name pop up on her inbox, Chase. And that was when everything started to unravel. Chase, the guy she dated all through college. Her ex. I could hear the faint, nagging voice in my head telling me to ignore it, to mind my own business. But my gut told me something was off. And when I clicked on the message, I realized my gut had been right all along. My hands trembled as I opened the email thread, and what I saw instantly hollowed me out. The first line I read wasn't a simple, "Hey, how are you?" It was her telling him how much she missed him in a way she never expressed with me. The words were filled with longing, with desire, and worst of all, with memories of a past she swore had been left behind. She wrote about the nights they had spent together, how she could still feel his hands on her, how she touched herself thinking about him. I stopped breathing for a second. I could not believe this was real. My Brooke, my fiancée, was sending messages like this while planning our wedding. Every part of me wanted to slam the computer shut, but something else made me keep reading. I needed to know. I had to know the full extent of this betrayal. The email stretched on for months. She talked about her body, how it still reacted to the thought of him. She confessed things to him she had never once shared with me. She told him about secret fantasies, things she claimed she hated when we were together, things she apparently craved from him. I felt sick, physically ill. This was not just some random ex. This was the man who she compared me to. Every detail, every message was a knife slowly being twisted deeper into my gut. My fiancé was fantasizing about another man while lying next to me, while we planned our future together. And then I saw it, the email that made my hands clench into fists so tight, my knuckles turned white. She wrote to him about me, about how she could not believe she was marrying me, when his was half of yours. That was it. I stood up so fast the chair crashed to the floor behind me. My vision blurred. Every rational thought was swallowed by a wave of rage, so intense I could barely stand it. The house suddenly felt too small, the walls closing in as I fought the urge to break something. Anything. I paced the room, my heart hammering in my chest. How could she lie to me, smile at me every day, kiss me, and tell me she loved me when this was going on behind my back? I thought back to the nights we spent together, the moments of intimacy I believed were real. Were they all lies? Had she been thinking of him while she was with me? My skin crawled at the thought. And yet, through all the anger and betrayal, there was still a sick part of me that wanted to confront her, to scream at her, to demand she explain why she had done this to me. But deep down, I knew there was no explanation that could make this right. I looked back at the screen, at the message where she told him how she missed how he used to touch her, how she fantasized about him in ways she never had with me. She even detailed things we had never done together, but apparently, she had craved with him. That was when I realized I couldn't face her. I couldn't let her walk through that door, look me in the eye, and feed me more lies. I had to disappear, vanish, because if I stayed, the confrontation might get ugly. I would ghost her, leave her with nothing but silence and the consequences of her actions. The decision came over me like a storm, sudden and fierce. I could not confront her, not after what I had seen. The idea of seeing her face, hearing her voice, knowing what she had done behind my back, was too much. I needed to act, and I needed to act fast. I stared at the screen for a long moment, my fingers itching to delete everything, to erase the vile messages from my mind. But I knew I could not just pretend this had not happened. No, this was bigger than just an argument or a misunderstanding. This was a betrayal so deep, it left scars on my soul. So, I shut down the computer and grabbed my phone. The first thing I did was change the locks. I did not want her stepping foot in this house again. Not without me controlling when and how. She could keep her trip and her fake life. But I was not going to give her the satisfaction of coming back to me as if everything was normal. Next, I packed a bag, just the essentials. I would stay somewhere else until I figured out what to do next. I needed space, needed to think without her presence haunting every corner of the house we were supposed to share. As I was packing, her messages started coming in. At first, they were casual, the way she always checked in when she was out of town. "Hey babe, how's your day going?" Followed by a heart emoji. The sight of it made me sick. I could not respond, not after what I had seen. Instead, I watched the phone buzz, message after message, knowing full well she had no idea her world was about to collapse. As the hours passed, the messages from Brooke became more frequent. "Why are you not responding?" she asked. "Is everything okay?" she wondered. I ignored every single one, and with each message, I felt my resolve strengthen. She had no clue what was coming. She was still living in her little fantasy world, where she could cheat, lie, and betray me, and everything would go on as usual. But that was about to end. I took the next step and called my boss. I needed time. I could not pretend like everything was normal at work, not while my life was unraveling at home. I told him there was a personal crisis, nothing too detailed, just enough to buy myself 2 weeks of leave. He was understanding, wished me well, and told me to take as long as I needed. I then packed up all her things, every last item of hers that cluttered our shared space. Clothes, shoes, makeup, anything that reminded me of her. I stuffed it all into boxes and took them to a storage unit. She could pick them up when she finally figured out what was going on. I was not about to give her the satisfaction of facing her when she returned. Before I left, I made sure to grab my share of the money from the joint account we had set up for the wedding. I took out 70%. It was only fair since I had contributed the most. I canceled the venue, the caterer, the photographer, everything. Watching the plans for the life we were supposed to build together crumble before my eyes was strangely satisfying. It felt like I was taking back control, piece by piece. The phone kept buzzing. She was calling now, leaving voicemails that I refused to listen to. Her tone was shifting from concern to frustrated. "Jake, what the hell? Why are you ignoring me? Did I do something wrong?" She had no idea. I almost laughed. By the time I finished packing and canceling everything, it was evening. Brooke's messages had turned desperate. "Jake, I am worried about you. Please call me. What is going on?" She was starting to panic. She could feel that something was wrong, but she still did not know what. The idea of her sitting in her hotel room, waiting for me to respond, while I quietly dismantled the life we had built together. It was almost poetic. I booked a room at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. A month-long stay. I needed to disappear for a while, to figure out what came next without her being able to find me. I checked in, threw my bag onto the bed, and finally collapsed, exhausted from the day's events. But sleep did not come. My mind was racing, replaying everything I had read in those emails, over and over again. The image of her lying to me, of her confessing her desires to another man, haunted me. I had loved her. I had trusted her. And now, I did not even know who she was. The silence in the motel room was deafening. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the storm that I knew was coming. Brooke would be home tomorrow, and when she found the locks changed and the house empty, she would know something was terribly wrong. I could only imagine the look on her face when she realized what I had done, when she realized that I knew. The next morning, I woke up to more missed calls and messages from Brooke. She was still clueless, still trying to reach me, but I had already vanished from her world. I stared at my phone for a while, watching the missed calls rack up, her voicemail sitting there, unanswered. The panic in her messages was growing. "Jake, please. What is going on? Why won't you answer me? Are you okay? Did something happen?" I let out a long breath. I had spent the night in a cheap motel room, the bed stiff, the walls paper-thin, but I had slept better than I thought I would. There was a certain peace in the chaos, knowing that I was finally in control. The storm was coming, but I was ready for it. A few hours later, I got the message I had been waiting for. Jake, I'm home. Why is the door locked? My key isn't working. Where are you? I could almost see the confusion on her face, standing there at the front door of our house. Her house, as far as she knew, trying to figure out why she could not get in. The panic must have been setting in now. She had no idea what I had discovered. No clue why her life was suddenly unraveling. I did not respond. I did not need to. The next message came in rapid succession. She must have tried again to get inside, only to realize she was truly locked out. Jake, what is going on? Why are the locks changed? Where are you? And then, it started. The phone calls, one after the other, her name flashing on the screen like a relentless beacon. She was losing control, the same way I had lost it when I first read those emails. Her panic was now palpable through every desperate call. She tried calling my family next. My mother called me, concerned. Jake, Brooke has been trying to reach you. She says she's locked out of the house. What's going on? I told her only what was necessary. Mom, I'm calling off the wedding. Brooke has been cheating on me. There was a long pause. Oh, Jake. I don't want to talk about it right now. Just don't tell her anything. Please. Mom agreed, knowing better than to push for details, and I promised I would explain everything when I was ready. Brooke continued to bombard my phone with messages, her tone changing from worry to anger. Jake, answer me. What the hell is going on? Her desperation was almost laughable. I could picture her pacing outside the house, trying to understand why her life was falling apart, and she had no idea it was all her fault. She tried texting again. Why did you change the locks? Did I do something wrong? Please, talk to me. Still, I said nothing. I knew she would not stop. I knew her well enough to know that she was relentless when she felt like she was losing control. And that is exactly what was happening now. She was spiraling, and the more she spiraled, the calmer I felt. 2 days passed like this. Her frantic messages, her calls, and me, sitting quietly in my motel room, watching as she slowly unraveled. I had sent her things to storage, left the receipt taped to the door. There was nothing left for her in that house. It was no longer ours. It was mine, for however long I wanted it to be. But the silence was getting to her. She was not used to it, and the longer I stayed silent, the more she seemed to lose her grip. On the second day, I got a voicemail. Her voice was shaking with confusion, anger, and something close to fear. Jake, please. I'm begging you. Just tell me what's going on. I don't understand. What happened? Why are you doing this to me? I did not respond. I knew what was coming next. It was not long before she made her next move. I knew Brooke. She would not sit still, not when she felt like her life was slipping through her fingers. So, when I saw the series of missed calls from my workplace, I knew exactly what had happened. She had shown up at my job. I had predicted this, which was why I had taken a leave of absence. I had already warned the receptionist to tell anyone looking for me that I was not available. Apparently, she had left a note. The receptionist had called to ask what I wanted to do with it, but I already knew what it said. Brooke's words were predictable. She was frantic, and when she was frantic, she could be reckless. The note probably had all sorts of wild accusations, her confusion bleeding through every sentence. When I heard the receptionist describe the note's contents, I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. You cannot hide from me, Jake. I will find you. You owe me an explanation. This is not over. Oh, it was over. She just did not know it yet. I knew it was only a matter of time before Brooke escalated. The messages had shifted from confusion to anger and now to desperation. She was getting frantic, and when someone like her starts to feel the walls closing in, they start making irrational decisions. I could feel it. Something was coming. Then, I got a call from the motel's front desk. Sir, there is a woman asking about you. She says she is your fiancé. My heart raced as I realized what had happened. She had found me. I do not know how. Maybe she tracked my bank transactions or called around to the hotels in the area. It did not matter. What mattered was that she was here, at the motel, ready to confront me face to face. I took a deep breath and told the receptionist to tell her I was not available. But Brooke was not going to leave that easily. She was relentless when she was losing control, and now, she was standing outside the motel room, hammering on the door. "Jake, I know you are in there. Open the door. We need to talk." I stood there in silence, staring at the door as it rattled under her fists. My pulse pounded in my ears, the anger and betrayal rising inside me again. I had been calm up until now, but hearing her voice, knowing she was just on the other side of that door, made everything raw again. The confrontation I had been avoiding was now here, whether I liked it or not. There was no escape now. I opened the door. Brooke stood there, disheveled and frantic, her eyes wide with desperation. "Jake, what is going on? Why are you doing this to me? Why did you disappear?" Her voice was shaking, her eyes red, and for a split second, she almost looked like the Brooke I used to love. But then the memory of those emails flashed in my mind, and all I felt was rage. I let her speak. I let her ramble on about how scared she had been, how confused she was, how she thought something terrible had happened to me. She had no idea what I knew, and she was trying to play the victim. "You cannot just disappear like this," she continued, her voice climbing higher. "We were supposed to get married. You owe me an explanation." That was when I snapped. "An explanation?" I spat, stepping closer. "You want to know what happened? Fine. I will tell you what happened. I found your emails, Brooke. Every disgusting message you sent to Chase. Every single one." Her face went pale. It was like the blood drained out of her all at once. The shock in her eyes was undeniable. She stumbled back a step, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for the right words. But nothing came out. "I read everything," I said, my voice cold. "I read about how much you miss him, how you fantasize about him, how you touch yourself thinking about him, how you talked about me, how you laughed behind my back about our future together while you were wishing you were with him." Her hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with panic now. "Jake, no. But I did not let her finish. "You lied to me," I growled. "You made me think we had something real, but you were living in some twisted fantasy with your ex the whole time. So do not stand here and act like you are the victim. You did this. You destroyed us." Brooke's eyes filled with tears, her hands shaking as she reached for me. "Jake, please, it is not what you think. I never cheated on you. I never even saw him in person. It was just emails. It was stupid. I was not thinking, I swear." I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Do you think that makes it better? Do you think that somehow excuses the fact that you were fantasizing about him while we were planning our wedding? You were cheating on me, Brooke. Maybe you did not sleep with him, but you cheated all the same." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face now. "Jake, I love you. I do. I was just confused. I did not mean any of it. Please, just let me explain. We can work through this." My chest tightened with a surge of anger. How dare she stand there and beg for another chance after everything she had done? After the way she had torn my heart to pieces? "You want to explain?" I said, my voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "Go ahead. Explain why you said I was nothing compared to him. Explain why you were talking about how much you missed him touching you. Explain why you told him you wanted to be with him when you were lying next to me every night." She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "I do not know, Jake. I do not know why I said those things. It was a mistake, I swear. I never meant to hurt you." But her tears did not move me. Not this time. I had heard enough lies. As I stood there, watching her fall apart, I realized that I no longer felt anything for her. The love I had once had for Brooke, the woman I had planned to spend my life with, was gone, burned away by her betrayal. "There is nothing left to talk about," I said, my voice low and cold. "It is over, Brooke. The wedding is off. We are done." Her sobs grew louder as she tried to grab my arm, but I stepped back, shaking my head. "No, you do not get to play the victim here. You made your choice when you started lying to me. Now you have to live with it." She collapsed to the ground, her sobs echoing through the empty motel corridor. But I was done. I turned my back on her and walked away, my heart heavy, but finally free. I walked back to my motel room, feeling a strange sense of peace settle over me. It was done. Brooke had tried to manipulate me, to play on my emotions, but I had seen through her. I had faced her, and I had walked away. As I sat down on the bed, I realized that I was going to be okay. It was going to take time. There was no denying that. But I had made the right choice. I had taken back control of my life, and now I could move forward, free from the lies and betrayal that had haunted me. I blocked her number after that. I did not want to hear from her again. I did not need closure or an apology. I had found my own closure the moment I walked away from her. The wedding was off, the house was mine, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. Brooke would have to live with the consequences of her actions, but I was free. Bye.